The March for Dignity arrived in Colombia's capital, Bogotá, on Monday to demand respect for life and justice in the face of the ongoing assassinations of social and indigenous leaders, campesinos and black Colombians. Russia and the United Kingdom have both announced positive progress in trials of COVID-19 vaccines. The Executive Director of the W.H.O Health Emergencies Programme has voiced alarm at the spread of COVID-19 in Africa. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. The March for Dignity arrived in Colombia's capital, Bogotá, on Monday to demand respect for life and justice in the face of the ongoing assassinations of social and indigenous leaders, campesinos and black Colombians. Social and human rights organizations began marching from the city of Barrancabermeja in the Colombian state of Santander on July 13th. The activists have denounced a humanitarian crisis across the country and demanding that the Colombian government take action to halt the violence that has caused the death of 160 social leaders and signers of the peace agreement this year. Meanwhile, sittings were seen in other parts of the capital to denounce the health crisis in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The demonstrations are taking place in the context of the 210th anniversary of Colombia's independence. According to official figures, Chile is registering 45 COVID-19 deaths per 100,000 inhabitants. This figure places Chile as the worst-hit country in South America in terms of coronavirus fatalities, even above countries like Brazil and Peru, which have reported more cases and deaths. According to economists, the neoliberal model in place in Chile is the main cause of this situation. Experts point out that the government of Sebastián Piñera prioritizes subsidies for the private health system, thus neglecting the public system and leading to its collapse. Paraguay's leaders have analysed the progress of the country's smart quarantine and the resources needed to implement the post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. The meeting was attended by President Mario Abdo Benitez, the head of the National Congress, Oscar Salomón, and the President of the Supreme Court of Justice, Alberto Martínez Simón. The agenda discussed the progress of the smart quarantine imposed from May, as well as the recovery plans that authorities should implement in the wake of the crisis caused by the novel coronavirus pandemic. The meeting also addressed the complicated situation in border cities, virtually paralysed since the imposition of measures in March to prevent the spread of the virus. For the first time in 5 months, Cuba has reported no new positive cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. By the end of Sunday, the COVID-19 figures in Cuba stood at 2,446 cases since the first was confirmed on March 12th. Director of Epidemiology at the Cuban Ministry of Public Health, Dr. Francisco Duran, also reported this Monday that Cuba has no COVID-19 patients in a serious condition and has not reported a COVID-19 death for the past 9 days. Families living in precarious conditions in Guatemala have denounced the high cost of food as a result of the coronavirus crisis, while adding that government support has yet to reach all parts of the country.
Thousands of Guatemalan families have been forced to increase their working hours to cope with the rising cost of basic goods.
Everything is expensive, even fruits and vegetables. Prices continue going up. We need to do something about this.
Those affected by the high prices point out that industrialized products have not dropped in price since the novel coronavirus started to spread in the country.
In the stores, the price of soap went up, sugar and rice too. Guatemala does not harvest rice. So what's going to happen? That disease is not slowing down. It's only getting worse.
The price hikes are reportedly caused by multiple restrictions that force traders to recover losses.
They increase the prices because if they don't, then they will lose. That's the problem. It's affecting all of us. It's not just the trader or just the buyer. We are all affected by this pandemic.
As a result of a collapse in their economies, many families have seen their income drastically reduced and forced to seek new ways to sustain themselves.
If this disease wouldn't exist, people could look for work and have something to eat. But because of this disease, they cannot go out. So what will they do? What will they eat?
And while the cost of living increases, thousands of families in precarious conditions still do not receive government support.
As part of the celebration of the 41st anniversary of the triumph of the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua, President Daniel Ortega stated that during his mandate more than 500 investments have been made in the health sector, reflecting the readiness of his government to face the coronavirus pandemic.
From 2007 to date, the following investments have been made in the health infrastructure. 19 hospitals have been built, which explains the ability to treat the population, 2 national hospitals, 1 provincial hospital, 16 general hospitals, 18 health centers, 452 health stations, 128 maternity homes.
To celebrate the 15 years since the launch of Telesur, our multimedia platform has produced the song Our Voice Rises alongside the famous Cuban band Buena Fe. It's a song featuring multiple female voices and loaded with Latin American and Caribbean rhythms. The song pays tribute to this platform of struggle and resistance. No one better than Buena Fe to take on the task of creating an authentic song, combining good music with intelligent lyrics. Israel Rojas managed to turn the most urgent issues facing today's world into verses.
Perhaps because it's the most unequal continent, perhaps because there's such a tremendous colonial heritage here, especially in terms of our thought, but also a libertarian tradition that emerged. So all that converged beautifully together, and that's good, isn't it? For the song that had been supported by Latin American female voices.
The arrangement of Our Voice Rises is based on urban rhythms. The charango, percussion and acoustic and Spanish guitars are equally protagonists. Musician Ernesto Cisneros confesses he's a loyal follower of Telesur, which is why he also decided to insert the theme music of the channel into the melody of the song.
I added elements of Andean music along with urban music, natural instruments, and electronic music as well. That is the sound of drums combined with the real sound of the bass, and also a part with a double bass. These sounds cover several areas of our America, our Hispanic America.
In the midst of the pandemic, production was a challenge. Some declined the call from Telesur, giving in to the hegemonic and predominant cultural industry. However, these women showed courage and commitment. Our Voice Rises became a huge chorus of Latin American women.
Those who overcame all these limitations and show a special interest in participating and didn't make any kind of demand, as a matter of fact, they were women. That seemed so beautiful to me, so symbolic. It made me think that Latin America is definitely a female continent. It is a continent heavy with good causes, about to give birth to all those causes so that the world will be a better place.
Everything indicates that the voice of this television network, which 15 years ago emerged from the heart of this continent, will continue to be, for many more years to come, an authentic media platform of the people and for the people, an insurgent signal of struggle and resistance.
Manipulación mediática, maltratando las conciencias, por si el lucro no descansa, pues que nuestro amor no duerma.
It's a touch of a struggle and a touch of celebration because it's Telesur's anniversary. 10.08, it is a counter-hegemonic and insurgent song, just like Telesur. Telesur is connected to the people who sing it and the people who appreciate it. The song resembles Telesur in my opinion. We'll have to see what you think.
Fabiola Lopez, Telesur, Havana. And we're taking a short break now, but we'll be right back, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A night of protests against police brutality in the US city of Portland, Oregon, ended with police using tear gas, stun grenades and rubber bullets to disperse protesters. The mayor of Portland demanded the withdrawal of federal officers, accusing them of dangerously escalating the situation with abusive, unconstitutional tactics against protesters. The accusations followed another night of protests in the city that saw a police association building set aflame. The Oregon Attorney General and the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit late on Friday night against the federal government, accusing it of overstepping its powers and injuring or threatening peaceful protesters. The Portland protests form part of the nationwide mobilizations against police brutality and systemic racism sparked by the murder of George Floyd. The Russian Defense Ministry is predicting the high effectiveness of a COVID-19 vaccine developed by its scientists. Researchers at the National Research Center for Epidemiology and Microbiology carried out preclinical trials in animals, leading to the prediction that the neutralizing activity of the vaccine candidate will provoke a long-term immune response in the human body. The last group of participants in the human trials of the vaccine was discharged from a Moscow hospital this Monday. According to tests, they have developed antibodies against the coronavirus, while the components of the vaccine have proven to be safe. Scientists at Oxford University in the United Kingdom reported this Monday that their experimental coronavirus vaccine prompted a protective immune response in hundreds of people who got the shot. Researchers first began testing the vaccine in April on about 1,000 people, half of whom were injected with the experimental vaccine. In research published on Monday in the Lancet Medical Journal, scientists said that they found their experimental COVID-19 vaccine had produced a dual immune response in people aged 15 to 55, and the response lasted at least 2 months after they were immunized. On Monday, EU leaders gathered for another session of talks after 3 days and nights of long debates failed to reach a consensus on a €750 billion recovery package to drag Europe out of the recession sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Impression that European leaders really want an agreement. They show the clear will to find a solution, and we need a solution. The European citizens need a solution. The European Union needs a solution, needs an agreement to overcome this crisis and to prepare Europe for the future. I'm positive for today. We are not there yet, but things are moving in the right direction.
Vietnam has now seen 95 days without any locally transmitted coronavirus cases. The 243 COVID-19 cases confirmed in Vietnam since April 16th were people who returned from abroad. The commission in charge of containing the pandemic announced that of the 383 people who have tested positive for COVID-19, 357 have fully recovered. Vietnam has not reported any COVID-19 deaths, which along with the small number of cases has earned the country the praise of the World Health Organization, experts and institutions across the world. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Executive Director of the WHO Health Emergencies Programme, Dr. Michael Ryan, has voiced alarm at the spread of COVID-19 in Africa. The African continent has now reported more than 700,000 coronavirus cases, and South Africa is now the 5th most affected country in the world.
While South Africa is experiencing a very, very severe event, I think it is really a marker of what the continent could face if urgent action is not taken to provide further support. So I think, and we've seen this in other regions, sometimes this disease can take off very quickly, and sometimes in other situations it takes off more slowly and then accelerates, and it's difficult to understand fully why that is the case. But I'm very concerned right now that we're beginning to see an acceleration of disease in Africa.
The Syrian health minister has warned that the increasing number of COVID-19 cases could lead to a bigger outbreak if measures are not adopted to curb the spread of the virus.
The number of infections with the coronavirus increases in Syria, where the outcome of infections has reached 522 infections, including the number of infections recorded today. As the virus expands horizontally and vertically, horizontal, which is spread at the provincial level, vertical means an increase in the number of infections. It could become a wider outbreak if the individuals and social safeguards are not adhered to. We received some medical aid from China and some from Russia. We thank them for it, but there is no communication in this matter with the Arab countries. It is forbidden to transfer medicine to Syria because drug agents are prohibited for dealing with Syria, and money transfers to import medicine and medical equipment through the Central Bank of Syria are prohibited. So there are sanctions against the Syrian people, largely through the Caesar Act.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry arrived in Ramallah on Monday for talks with the Palestinian leadership on the Israeli plan to annex parts of the West Bank.
What we talked about today was extremely important, which is coordinating efforts and following these efforts to reach the prevention of annexation, and in how to provide appropriate atmosphere for how to return to negotiations in accordance with international legitimacy and internationally approved preferences. We seek to find the appropriate framework in accordance with the decisions of international legitimacy and in accordance with the Arab Initiative and the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people in order to resume the political track and negotiations leading to a two-state solution, which is the ideal solution that allows the Palestinian and Israeli people to live in peace and security away from the conflict.
Demonstrators took to the streets of Guinea's capital, Conakry, claiming that President Alpha Condé plans to extend his term in office. Following 3 months of inaction due to COVID-19 restrictions, the National Front for the Defence of the Constitution resumed demonstrations on Monday. The Guinean Security Ministry noted that only a few people turned out for the protests, which included attempts to set up barricades, the spilling of motor oil on roads, and clashes with security forces. President Condé enacted a new constitution in April, which was overwhelmingly backed by voters in a referendum that was opposed by the opposition. Among the changes were presidential term limits, causing opponents to claim that Condé would seek to remain in power. Guinea's general elections are set to be held in October this year. Officials reported on Sunday that the death toll from heavy monsoon rains across South Asia has climbed to nearly 200. Authorities in Bangladesh and Nepal warned that rising waters would bring further flooding. Torrential rains during the monsoon season between June and September trigger floods, landslides and lightning strikes across the region every year, killing hundreds. Officials in Bangladesh said at least 67 people had died and another 2.6 million had been affected by swollen rivers. Meanwhile, in Nepal, 79 people have died and 46 are missing after floods and landslides, with the government warning of rising river levels over the next 3 days. Opponents of Mali's president erected barricades in the capital, Bamako, on Monday after international mediators failed to resolve the political crisis in the West African country. The 15-nation Economic Community of West African States ended a mediation mission to Mali on Sunday with a list of reform proposals. However, the opposition rejected the proposals as they did not address its main demand, the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The president and the opposition June 5th movement have been locked in a political standoff for weeks, which spiraled into violent clashes earlier this month, leaving 11 dead and over 150 injured. Community mediators on Sunday suggested forming a new unity government and appointing new judges to Mali's constitutional court, who could potentially re-examine the disputed election results. Now we've come to the end of this news brief, but we finish with the song Our Voice Rises, produced to mark the 15th anniversary of the launch of Télésur. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website and on social media. For Télésur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching and enjoy the music.
Sonriendo entre los feroces arquitectos de zarpazos,
señal que no pierde el paso, amplificando otras voces.
Las voces desobedientes, mestizas de ese salobre, indio, campesino y pobre, más humano que clientes.
Semiótica que entra al juego desde la piel del sufrido. Júbilo que bajo fuego, más se yergue convencido. Ni sudaca con espuelas,
ni parlante mal nacido.
Negativas verdaderas ante el falso positivo.
La espada de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Se levanta nuestra voz. Soy como tú eres como yo. Se levanta nuestra voz. Te susurra tu corazón. Se levanta nuestra voz. Entérate, despiértate. Nuestra voz. Las plazas con las abuelas se van llanto de cenizas, deshielos que van deprisa, glaciares de viejas penas.
Continente de maíz, de quinoa, soya y arroz, curándose el hambre atroz que anclaron en su raíz.
Caravana de migrantes corrigiendo con los pies los geométricos sangrantes cálculos de Hernán Cortés. Periodismo compañero del estudiante sangrando, ojos que siguen mirando de frente al carabinero. Y verdes y de colores del agua y pala, se levanta nuestra voz. La hierba buena, la hierba mala, se levanta nuestra voz. Se perdona todo, pero no se olvida nada. Nuestra voz, nuestra voz. La escuela de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Se levanta nuestra voz. Soy como tú eres como yo. Se levanta nuestra voz. Passada por nós quando ainda criança, ciranda dos povos, na ginga dos corpos, palafitas, mocambos, quilombos, favelas. O povo resiste na tardia, na falsa abolição. Todas as minorias dos oprimidos pela colonização. Povo de luta nas trincheiras da nova guerra social. De acabouca, vive na mata, busca alimento pra alma. Fazendo a caça, acertando a flecha na cega.
Sépase que la verdad hay que saber defenderla o nos vuelven a estafar con cristales y linternas.
Manipulación mediática, maltratando las conciencias, por si el lucro no descansa, pues que nuestro amor no duerma.
Otro punto de vista, las venas abiertas del continente.
Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente. Se descubre por valiente. Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente. La escuela de Bolívar otra vez se alzó. Compromiso con la vida, somos señal insurgente. El dolor de un continente, intenso, largo, profundo, Dios lo anida en nuestro vientre para